How you doing, everyone? This is Steve here, back once again, another video for you. So, alright, I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking to you about, the main albums, the top 10 albums that have had the biggest influence on me as a musician and have, taken me from the point when I first started playing guitar back in 1993 right up until where I am today. Now, the albums I've picked out, and it's actually, it's taken me a while to really kind of narrow this lot down because I listen to so much stuff just depending on what my mood and whatever, just the same as you probably do. And I wouldn't even go so far as to say to some of these are my favourite kind of albums of all time, but these are the albums that have got me from where I was back then, and without them I wouldn't be the musician that I am now. So I've got them down here. I'm just going to kind of rattle through these, no particular sort of order of favouritism or preference or whatever. But I am going to deliberately start with this one, which is this. This is Iron Maiden's No Prayer for the Dying. Now, compared to, for some of the Maiden fans, this album, is mainly seen as a bit of a low point in the band's career, and I suppose if you put it up against albums such as the classics, Number of the Beast, Power Slave, Summer in Time, and all that, you could say that it probably isn't one of their best work, but this was a very important album to me for two reasons. One, as soon as I heard this, as a 9-year-old kid, I just listened to that and thought, right, that is it. I want to play guitar now. I want to play guitar and make it sound like this. It just absolutely blew me away. And also the reason is, I've picked this one out as opposed to a lot of the other Maiden albums. I mean, I've got all of them, of course. This is also the first album I ever bought with my own money, ever. So yeah. So again, whilst it might not be their best work, this is a very special album to me. And yeah, there you go. So that's one of them. Okay, so the next one then I'm going to pick up is this. This is Joe Satriani's Flying in a Blue Dream. Now, I heard this album. I'd probably been playing guitar for about, let me think, probably a couple of years at the time, when my guitar teacher at the time, a guy called Ed Brown, hopefully he's watching this video, lent me a copy of this, and I remember going up to my room, putting this on, listening to it, and my God, I had never heard anything like this. I didn't know you could make a guitar sound like this. I didn't know you could play a guitar like this. I mean, some of the playing on here at the time, I remember listening to this thinking that something was wrong with the tape because I thought it was stuck on fast forward because it was so quick. Especially this guitar solo in the song Can't Slow Down, ironic title, of course. But nah, man, this album absolutely blew me away. I mean, The Extremist is a very close second to this, I have to be honest, but this was the first one of his that I heard, and still to this day, absolutely blinding album. If you don't own a copy of this, you need to sort that out, mate. You need to check this out. This is awesome. Alright, so the next one I'm going to pick up is this. This is Paradise Lost Draconian Times. Okay, now this album, not only was this the first Paradise Lost album I ever bought, this was the first album that I ever bought just on the strength of all the reviews. Okay, because when this album came out in 1995, no internet back then, the only way you could check out new music was to go out and physically buy it. And I remember at the time buying a lot of the metal magazines at the time, who all of them were going on and on and on about this British band Paradise Lost. I mean, I'd never heard of them. And then when this album come out, all the reviews were saying stuff, 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, best album ever, best. So I thought, well, they can't all be wrong. So I went into my local record store at the weekend, and I took a chance, and I bought it. Not having heard any of their stuff before this. No, I'll tell you, I had heard one song off this album. There's a song called Hallowed Land, which was on a Kerrang cover mount cassette tape called New Metal Messiahs, which I've still got to this day. And the day I got this album, I became so obsessed with it. I actually listened to this album 12 times in one day. That's how big an impact this album had. And again, absolutely brilliant, brilliant album. Oh mate, this is just awesome. I love it. Okay, the next one then is this one, Megadeth, Euthanasia. Now, again, what I loved about this album was the fact that, you know, not only, you know, was it, you know, still a pretty heavy album, it also was, you know, it was pretty catchy. You know, it wasn't full on, it wasn't all, you know, really, really intense, but it just had some absolutely great songs on it. I mean, I really think, you know, I mean, some fans may, you know, disagree with me, and that's okay, but I mean, again, you know, the classic lineup here made this album. Yeah, of course, you know, you've got your albums like, you know, of course, Rust in Peace and Countdown to Extinction, which are both great, but, you know, some people could argue that maybe Rust in Peace, and it was when Megadeth were on the top of their game, and, you know, that might be true, but, you know, for me, you know, this album is just fantastic. I really like this, and some, again, you know, it might not be as fast or as, you know, crazy as say Rust in Peace was, but no, I think this is an absolutely great album, and I really do, you know, think this has got some great songs on it. So yeah, check it out if you haven't already. Okay, the next one then is this, Def Leppard's Hysteria. Now, I remember I got a lot of mileage and a lot of influence out of listening to this. Mainly, the things I took from this the most was the fact that, you know, the guitar players on this album, Phil Collin and Steve Clark, rest in peace, had this way of playing where, unlike a lot of other sort of heavy metal bands, you know, at the time, and I know Def Leppard have never really kind of said that they're, you know, they're a metal band and whatever, but, you know, they've certainly dabbled with it along with a few other things. What they would never play the same guitar part ever. Every song they were playing, they were both doing something completely different, and that really got me thinking about, you know, just ways you can make a load of sort of just make you sound different. And it's something that I even do now in all the bands that I'm in to this day. You know, the other guitarist, you know, if they're just standing playing regular chords, I'll be playing chords an octave higher. Or if somebody's, you know, playing, you know, a rhythm part, I might play, you know, some sort of a melody over the top of it, just to kind of make it all sound as big as possible. And, you know, this album was a real, you know, really big inspiration for me to start playing like that. And I've done it ever since. So, yeah, thanks Def Leppard. You know, I couldn't have done it without you. Okay, next album then, you know, is a bit of a contrast, is this one, Sepultura, Chaos AD. Now, the one thing that was the biggest influence on me, or the reason this blew me out, this was the first time I'd ever heard anyone sing like this. Ever. You know, I probably got this album again in about 90, I think it was 94, I think I bought this, or maybe 95, I can't remember. And, you know, the first time I put this on and I heard, you know, this style of singing, whoa, like that, I was just like, what on earth is this? I mean, I'd never heard anything like it. And again, you know, it might not be as fast as, say, the albums before that, Beneath the Remains and The Rise, again, which are both albums that I love. But, no, I just think this is a great album. Some absolutely brilliant classic songs on here. And, yeah, check it out if you already haven't. Okay, then, so the next one might be kind of a bit of an obvious choice to you, but it had a huge impact on me, and that is, and you probably can tell what this is, but if you can't, this is the Black Album by Metallica. You can probably, you know, very imaginative, you know, title, you know, considering its cover. But now, when I first started learning guitar, a lot of the early days I spent playing along with this and learning this. You know, this was actually the first tab book I ever got bought. I think I got it for Christmas, I think. And because I started playing guitar when I was 9 years old, and just to give you an example of, you know, how big an impact this album had on me, by the age of 11 I could play this whole album start to finish, and I'm not bragging about it, I'm just telling you the truth. And even now as a guitar teacher, there have been occasions when with some of my students I've even said, well, we're going to learn this whole album from start to end, because there's so many, you know, I learnt so many good guitar techniques out of this, especially with the rhythm playing. And yeah, just once again, you know, absolute all-time classic. Love this album. Okay, next one then. This might come as a bit of a surprise to you, considering all the other albums that I've just gone through. But the next one is this, Nirvana's Nevermind. Now, why this had a huge impact on me? Well, you know, when you start learning, you know, any form of an instrument, you know, for me it was guitar. You know, I always knew I wanted to play like Iron Maiden and Metallica and stuff. But you know, when you're young and you're a kid, and you know, you find like-minded musicians and you want to form a band, you can't start blasting it, playing Iron Maiden and Metallica songs. You know, they're too hard. They're too difficult. So. But the songs that you can start playing that are pretty decent rock songs that are very easy is stuff like this. So yeah, learning to play these songs definitely got me a start with certainly jamming with other musicians. And you know, say what you like, I still think that this is a great album, and it still stands up even now. So yeah, that's what I think of Nirvana's Nevermind. Alright, now the last two albums, 9 and 10, I'm going to talk about these at the same time. And these actually, unlike all the other ones, are not tapes, they're CDs. We're moving on in the world. So, the next two that I'm going to talk about are these. Now, you're probably thinking, what on earth are these? I've never seen these before. Well, these are two cover mount CDs from a magazine called Terrorizer. Now, you know, back in 1995, like a lot of metal kids, my magazine I always used to read all the time was Kerrang! And I went down to my local newsagents this particular weekend, and, well, this local newsagent in Buntingford isn't even there anymore, it's actually a coffee shop now. And they didn't have a copy of Kerrang! But what they did have was a copy of a magazine I'd never heard of called Terrorizer, which had a picture of a dude playing a really pointy guitar on the front, and let's be honest, when you're a young metal kid, that looks really cool. I actually later found out the guy on the front cover was Chuck Schuldiner, one of my favourite guitar players of all time. And I thought, oh, it's got a CD with it. I'll buy that because I'm getting a magazine and getting a CD. And I went home, put this CD on, and I can quite honestly say that, you know, that was it, life-changing moment. You know, this is when a lot of my favourite bands now, had I not have bought the magazine that had this CD on it, I would not have discovered any of them. I really, really wouldn't. There has got so much great death metal stuff on it. A lot of these bands aren't even going anymore, which is kind of a shame because some of them are really, really good. And then the next month after this had blown me away, I went straight back down, got the next copy that had this CD on it, and again, so much great influential stuff on it that's influenced me now. Again, quite a few of these bands, are not going anymore, but some of them still are. So yeah, thanks to Terrorizer magazine, because in 1995 you pretty much changed my life. So yeah, okay, so I'm going to leave it there, but yeah, if you ever want to know what some of my most influential albums are, there you go. That's a list of it. I mean, and as I say, I've had to whittle this down to just 10 albums. If I wanted to talk about, every album that's influenced me, this video would go on for about 8 hours. But, yeah, alright then people, so I hope you've enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. If you have, please like and subscribe to the channel, and I will be back with you soon. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.